It's my solve until it's proven. And then if it's proven, it's the solve. I don't think, but I can tell you from my solve, Fenn is not doing things like worrying about anagrams. I don't think. I haven't come across it. From my understanding of what he's doing, I haven't come across it. Oops, I have to go double glasses. To be able to even see. That looks intelligent as usual when I do this. Oh, this is the famous one about Toledo. Well, this lady called me on the phone and she said, Mr. Fenn, I've studied your poem and looked at your clues. I just need some help. I can't figure it out. You've got to help me. I need something else. I said, lady, I'll give you a clue. The treasure's more than 300 miles west of Toledo. And she said, well, thank you, Mr. Fenn. I really appreciate it. You hung up the phone just happy as a bumblebee. First of all, I think it goes without saying that Fenn was talking about Toledo, Ohio. God, I had one guy respond to one of my videos because I brought up this whole thing. Goes, could have been Toledo, New Mexico. I found Toledo or some other little... But people make this too complicated. I'm sure he just meant Toledo, Ohio. I mean, if I said I was going to Denver, would you think I was going to Denver, Georgia? Which I don't even know if there is a Denver, Georgia. But if I'm going to just use one word to describe the place I'm going... Isn't the common use of the language or the common protocol for speaking that when you name a city, you give a state unless it's specific? You know what I'm trying to say? I mean, you're not going to say, yeah, it's more than 300 miles west of Toledo, meaning Toledo, New Mexico. Toledo, Ohio, and it was a joke anyway, and that's, I don't even think in this case he was trying to mislead and be the trickster. I think this woman, if you read the whole thing, was kind of irritated with her, kind of pushing him, and he's kind of, I mean, obviously it's more than 300 miles west of Toledo because the Rockies are like 1,000 miles west of Toledo. Drives you nuts. Some people, they make this so damn complicated. What I have found out is not that complicated. Once you figure it out. It's turned out, though, that I've got to literally work. I've got to work more to figure out what I'm doing. Oh, then I bring up the Coriolis force. Let's not bother with that. Well, good. Maybe this won't be that long, because I always talk about so much other stuff. These things turn into these marathon videos. Someone is saying they really like the book, Too Far to Walk, and he says, well, I hate to read anything where the next sentence is predictable. Because the guy said, well, it's an original book. He says, I've written 9 books, and in each of my books I've made up words, and I look in the dictionary to make sure it isn't there. My argument is, if I use a word and the reader knows exactly what I'm talking about, then who cares what the word is? I've done that in all my books. I've said some things in my book. I've made some deliberate errors just to see if anybody would find them. And they don't find them. He says they don't. He's talking to Dale Neitzel and some other guy. Some guy says it takes some long, concerted research and effort. Fenn says, well, it doesn't take, you just have to think the right things. Exactly. The clues are in the poem. Exactly. If you think the right things, the poem is totally understandable. You have to think the right things. The clues are in the poem, and if you can figure the clues out, they will take you to the treasure chest. You need a little imagination, maybe. He's understating the case. In my particular, I needed a lot of imagination to figure this out. It was a moment of epiphany, and I went, oh! Someone says, for example, silence, awkward laughter. All right, Andy Briggs, the guy from the United Kingdom, the author who said he found a code word. You overlay the code word, it solves the entire riddle with the exception of one small thing he couldn't quite get. Fenn says, well, I'll tell you, I could not find the treasure after reading his email about his solve. That's funny. This is some guy in England who Fenn said really was good at, excuse me, I'm trying to get comfortable here. Who Fenn said had really figured out a lot of the puzzle. Some guy in England. But then Fenn says, I could not find the treasure after reading his email about his solve. I just couldn't do it. But the treasure is there waiting for the right person. And Dale said he's been hunting for it for 60 years. Eid steps in and goes, 66 times, 66 trips, right? And Neitzel says 66. So see, there you go again. Fenn says Dale's been looking for the treasure 60 years. We know that's not true because Dale's not that old. He hasn't been looking for anything for 60 years, right? Seems like a relatively young man. So, you know, at my age, being in your 50s is relatively young. Or is young. So, but it was 66 times that Dale has been out, and Forrest just says he's been looking for it for 60 years. Fenn says he never tells me where he's going, but he brags about where he's been. This guy says, Eid says, why should he tell you? Neitzel, he knows where it's at. Fenn, I have to be real careful when I'm around him. Eads, I bet you do. Now we make it clear last time you were here. We made it clear last time you were here that he doesn't know, Mika doesn't know, you don't know, want anybody in your family to know, so people leave them alone, right? So anyway, he says he knows where it's at. I have to be real careful. I bet you do. Now we made it clear last time you were here. He doesn't know, Mika doesn't know. I never thought of it that way, that you would not tell your family just so people would know that they couldn't try to get it out of your family. That makes perfect sense. Yeah, that makes absolute perfect sense. Okay, we're getting near the end here. Oh, this is a famous one. I looked at it as a business instead of a love. I never loved art, and that's what gave me an advantage. If you like it less because it's a take, who is the fraud now? My rule was I didn't want to do anything for over 15 years. If Robert Redford had ever written anything, he probably could have done it better than the guy who wrote that Gatsby book. He's talking about Fitzgerald, and of course Robert Redford did write a book. I have the book. It's called The Outlaw Trail. That was part of what I used when I was in Vermilion Creek, reading about that area. Also, when I was in Denver, reading about Browns Park. Great book, The Outlaw Trail, by Robert Redford. So here's Fenn saying, if Robert Redford ever wrote a book, he'd probably write a good one. And he had already written it by the time Fenn said this. I've already checked this out previously. Okay, last but not least, I mean, you could go on and on and on with examples of Fenn misspeaking, flat out saying things like, I mean, you know the Robert Redford thing. He knows. He knew Robert Redford. He knows Robert Redford. They're both still alive. He knows Robert Redford. To me, A River Runs Through It is very much, could be almost a, I mean, it reminds me so much of Forrest Fenn's family with his brother Skippy, the older or younger brother who, you know, has the Indian wife and then he gets killed by the gamblers. And of course his brother Skippy died diving. And then his father, Forrest's father, was a principal. And their father's a minister. And they love fly fishing, all of them. I mean, that whole parallel of A River Runs Through It to Forrest Fenn's life as a youngster in Yellowstone, I have always thought that was incredible. So, but he knows Robert Redford's my point, so he knows he wrote a book called The Outlaw Trail. All right. Mistakes, not errors. Fenn, we're getting to the end. Fenn, I'm a night person. Sometimes I get romantic at night, and I'll say things in my computer, and I'll get up, come in here, and turn my computer on at 8 o'clock the next morning and read it and say, God, did I really say that? And so a lot of times I delete it, but I'm a night person. I'm writing a lot of times at 2 o'clock in the morning, and then I'll go to bed, and I'll think of something, and I'll get up 6, 8, 10 times before I go to sleep just to make notes, because I know I'm not going to remember it in the morning. Something that I want to say. And in my book, $17 a Square Inch, about Eric Sloane, my dear friend Eric Sloane, there were 2 lines in that book where I described the books. He wrote 50 books in 50 years. I had pictures of 8 or 10 of the covers of his books on the right-hand page. So write a sentence up. He did blah, 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 colon. But you can't end a sentence with a colon. So I put all the entire next page covered with book covers that Eric Sloane had written. I put those in a sentence, and I put the period way down here by the page number. I did that twice in my book, and nobody ever caught that. There was another case where I finished a sentence as a caption to a painting. I never heard of that being done before either, but I always make up words, and I look it up in the dictionary to make sure it isn't there. My philosophy is, first of all, dictionaries retard freedom of speech. Did you know that there are 150 prepositions in the English language, and you're not supposed to use any of them on the end? I think it's terrible that people make rules like that. But I make up words, and my philosophy is, if the reader knows exactly what you're talking about, then who cares what the word is? Why does it have to be a real word? And of course, as I've said one time in response to that, yeah, but what if you don't know what the hell he's talking about to begin with? Then when he screws it all up, it's even more confusing. That's all I got, folks. That's my son of Trickster. Just more examples of Forrest Fenn muddying the water, so to speak. I'm taking off on Sunday. I'm flying out to a magical place. And literally knew exactly where to go, kind of. And I know it's supposed to be where I'm going. But then at the last minute find out, oh, there's a hitch. Where I'm going, this place that I'm going to, nobody actually seems to know where it is. You can't, I mean, I get so tired of saying you can't make it up, but with this thing, it's true. But I'm going out there anyway, and then I'm going to have to go around the area I'm in and literally, I guess, earn it. Like he said, you're going to earn it. You're going to go work for it. So I guess I'm going to make some visits to places and talk to people and hope I figure out what I'm doing. God, it gets tiring. Really tiring, Mr. Fenn. I could see if you quit the chase, especially when your family's involved, but I hope you don't, because I am selfish about this, and I know a lot of other people are, because I saw their comments, and they were all saying the same thing. He's going to have a lot of people pissed off if he stops the hunt. Well, the most important thing is his family, so if he decided to stop it for his family's sake, because he's scared of them getting hurt sometime, that had to be scary. Guy coming, I don't care if you figure out later the guy's a big buffoon. Someone coming in your house with an axe is scary. That's scary. So I wouldn't blame him, but we'll see what happens with Mr. Fenn and his treasure chest. Chest. I guess I tried to say chest. Chest and chase. Chest. Chase. Everybody have a great day. I guess for most normal people, the season of hunting is over. Not quite for me, but after next week it will be, because that area of the country is going to be very, very cold very soon. And I'll see you all later. Have a good one. Try to have good thoughts about the treasure hunt. Not so much arguing. Later.